It's time for the 2025 F1 season, the most anticipated season probably in F1 history. 75 years of F1 and a certain seven-time world champion joining Ferrari. Akash, what's the top topics for our fans to know about for this season?
And it's you got to give it to Ferrari. If you guys haven't seen anything on Instagram or anywhere, I don't know what you've been doing. You've been living under a rock, I guess. Then, you have to give it to Ferrari's PR team for this Lewis move. It's actually been really well, shown. I will say I've enjoyed
True.
it. I think it's pretty cool with Lewis. At first, there's like a whole kind of shock value for Ferrari fans coming into the season, and it's not going to feel normal. It really is not going to feel normal. But
It
I
doesn't.
I think the more and more races go along with time, hopefully something happens. But man, it is just it's wild. It is just a wild situation that we have. And look, there's a lot of expectation for Ferrari. They could have, maybe even should have won the world champion, the constructors championship last season,
Yeah.
and they've been making a lot of moves over this testing, a lot of moves to,
Hmm.
and maybe some crazy moves almost.
Exactly. I mean, one thing we know from testing is Ferrari was sandbagging a lot. That's what people are saying. They were not showing their true potential and they were trying to test out quite a few things.
Yeah.
The biggest reveal is, in Australia now, just a couple of days away. It's going to be insane. It's
Mhm.
going to be a Hall of Fame moment seeing these two brands in F1, the driver and the team brand, come together like this. And as much as I'm not the biggest fan of Lewis, I still respect him for what he's done, and he is one of the greatest. So it's going to be fun to see.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fun to see how they manage Leclerc, the prodigal son, and Mr. Hamilton now, because
Oh yeah,
it's
I
going to
mean,
get tough.
Hamilton immediately goes into a situation where he's basically going to be driver two, but I don't know if he's willing to accept that. So I know Netflix is gonna want to see all this drama, and I'm expecting some drama to unfold a little bit during the season. I just hope that doesn't impair anything on the track, but we never know what can happen here. But
Speaking of driver number twos, sorry
yeah,
to cut you off there, but speaking of driver number twos, we have a few rookies this season.
too many.
Too many. Does Lawson qualify as a rookie? People were actually talking about this. Does he qualify? He's not completed a full
He's not
season
a
yet.
rookie, no, because he had a race already. Same thing. Also, you can make it with Behrman. Also, he doesn't technically qualify as a rookie, but they are Lawson and Behrman are basically rookies in my
Agreed.
eyes. Yeah.
Agreed.
So we've got Lawson Behrman. We've got Jack Doohan. Probably the one that maybe not expecting, but I'm most curious about is Kimi Antonelli, who's joining
Yes.
Mercedes. Super unheard of for a team of that caliber from a rookie just to go straight away into a top four team. And Isaac Hadjar.
Hajar.
Oh yeah,
And Mr. Gabriele Portoletto from Brazil, the nation which loves Formula One but has not had a good driver since Felipe Massa, like 15 years ago now,
yeah, yeah.
since his last good season. So it's going to be really, really interesting.
Mhm.
Um, I think what we have is a couple of drivers who are going to be in backmarker teams, which is traditional for rookies.
Yeah.
Don't expect too much of Bortoleto. Ajar can give Sonoda a fight for his money.
Yeah.
Sonoda at this point is just like, guys, just keep throwing rookies at me. I'm gonna keep destroying them. And
Yeah,
he has.
yeah, he's done really good. And I think the whole Yuki Lawson situation of who's going to get that second seat at Red Bull, has just made it. I don't know. I think it's just made it just such an awkward situation for Yuki that my potential. I don't know about contracts and stuff like that. I haven't looked into that too much with Yuki, but I could seriously see him down the line just being, thank you, Red Bull, thank you, Red Bull family. I want to go somewhere else.
I can see that.
I think other teams are going to value him a little bit higher, because he's been cooking. He cooked. He really has been a good driver for the car that he's been giving, and you got to give it. RB has had really ups, has some big ups, and has a lot of down moments. So
Exactly.
it's going to be a weird season for them. But I would expect something from Hadjar too.
They have the best looking livery though.
Yeah, they do. The white, ooh, yeah, that was
Clean.
yeah, that was sick. Where all the other cars basically made like almost honestly, I thought it was really overhyped with the liveries. There was just barely any update.
Nothing.
No one really stood out. It is
Ferrari went H is basically an
no, 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 no.
HP brand
Sorry,
placement.
bro. What are you talking about?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's the HP team with a Ferrari logo on it. That's Ferrari's
Ah.
just a sponsor at this point. I'm just
Yes.
saying.
Yeah, they're just the title sponsor at this point.
Exactly. That's ridiculous. But look, we rookies. We'll go back to that. We Behrman, Doohan, Lawson, for that matter. These guys have had some experience in F1 as
True.
reserve drivers. They've come in, they've subbed in, and they've done well. I think that's the one thing that we're like they've all done pretty decently, especially Behrman and Lawson. Whenever they've kind of
Oh yeah, for
had to
sure.
come up and step up, and Lawson made the end of the last season not great. A very got a little bit more aggressive, and maybe was it is this his true colors, or is this the
Exactly.
trajectory that we're going to be seeing with him? But he's got a car. Not the greatest car, has to be said right now. From
No Newey.
Yeah, no Newey. Not testing wasn't as outstanding as everyone thought maybe they were going to be. But look, it's still Red Bull. They're going to be in the fight for a championship every single time. So I would always back them to do
Okay.
to at least outperform, because they have the best F1 driver on the grid. So with Verstappen. So
And the thing with Doohan is so interesting because he doesn't even have a full season seat. He only has a contract for the first six races of the season, and they have called Pinto, another rookie, as a
Ooh,
reserve driver.
wait, look, I'm gonna be honest. I think my biggest regret was Pinto not getting a seat for this season. So I want to see him get that seat. As much as we don't want to see a rookie fail, but I'm sorry, Duhan. I want Pinto more than
Or you never know. Liam Lawson fails, and he, halfway through the season, when they come back from the mid-season break, you can see Pinto in a Red Bull because obviously Yuki is not going there. So
yeah.
they'll just be like, you know
You're,
what? You
wow,
come
you're
here.
really playing some 3D chess right there, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Look, we're talking about rookies. We're talking about the future. There's some really question marks that surrounds a lot of futures with a lot of these teams, because they're going in very different directions. I think that's what
True.
season is just so unique in that sense. I think the team we have to talk about is Williams. Goodness
Oh
gracious.
my God.
It
Yes.
is um it could be a stroke of brilliance with the move to Signs. Or it could be they just
It
stay
could
where they
really be
are
the
right
death of
now.
this team.
Yeah, it could be a death of this team. It could be a death of both drivers, almost like that. Like that they just kind of just become in that lower mid kind of area and stuff like that. So, and you don't want to see that. These two guys
No.
are pretty talented drivers. As much as we want to fault someone like an Albon, he still went. He still had a seat at Red Bull for a little bit, and they saw
True.
potential. They saw potential in him at one point. So, I think my prediction is I think they'll outperform a lot of expectations. I think the
I
cards
think so.
I think the cards are there for them to actually do well.
I mean, you look at that. Who was the fastest guy in testing all around? Mr. Carlos Sainz. And
Mm-hmm.
he comes on to an interview the next day. He's like, I'm still a bit lost with this car. I don't know where I'll find the time. And I'm like, excuse me, you just went faster than Lewis in a Ferrari. I know it's testing and
It's
timings
the
don't really
revenge tour.
matter.
It's the revenge tour.
It's the revenge tour. It's
Yeah,
it's continuing, dude. Ever since Mexico, it's just been going up and up. I mean, I think he deserves a top seat as well.
yeah.
And we'll talk about that in later on today. But the main thing is Can this year be the year they're a top five team? Because everyone in the paddock after testing is saying they can, but
Yeah,
they themselves are saying they're focusing on 2026 for the new regulation. So they're going to abandon this car really quick.
yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen.
It's interesting because when you actually think about, I think the top five is so open right now because you
Hmm.
have McLaren and just probably under is probably I would say Ferrari and Red Bull. I would say Ferrari and Red Bull, even though testing not as outstanding as everyone thought. I think they're
True.
about similar area. I think McLaren is just one step above, and that's the thing. Like we just have honestly, I have nothing to talk about McLaren because they are just basically what they've done last season and just carried on from what they've done. Same drivers, almost exactly like very similar car, and so and same and exactly the same livery basically. So there's nothing really new with them. I think I'm expecting high performance from them, but the fourth and fifth, I think that's where it's open. One, you
Yes.
have Mercedes, which is a huge toss up of what they're going to be doing because look, George is not going to be put into a position where like you are driver one basically, and
Yes.
you need to kind of lead this team. So that's really curious to see. Next thing is you have everything with Aston Martin that's going on, and that's something that's huge. With they've got Adrian Newey coming into their team,
Exactly.
and look, wherever Newey goes, he does the job, and he gives a championship level caliber kind of car. But I don't know. I just feel something's wrong with Aston Martin, man. It's drivers. I don't know. They haven't clicked.
I have a slight indication, and I think the name starts with L and ends with Armstrong.
You're gonna put everything on Stroll. At a certain point, I think it's not just on Lance. There's Lawrence's aspect also to it, but like I just
True.
think there's more things where it's just like for how much money they have, they're not performing at the level of where you would maybe compare it to a Red Bull or maybe Mercedes, which I think Aston need to be aiming that if we can beat Mercedes this year, that's a successful year.
Hmm.
Let's take that as a, let's that we're gonna take that as a successful year because we've got all these regulation changes coming up for the next season.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you have to remember, this is the team that used to be Force India. They were known for making the most out of what they were given. They were the scrappy people. You give them $10, they'll give you a value of 100, right? So I don't know what's happened. Maybe it's the fact that they have too much cash now, but also Lawrence had this whole idea that take the best car and copy it. You now have Adrian Newey. He's made it clear that's not how it works, you know?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Now we also have something which is very important, which is new teams coming.
Mm-hmm.
We have three on the horizon potentially.
Yep.
Just a couple of days ago, it was announced that Cadillac is finalized as the 11th team. And now that opens up Pandora's box. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
America.
I mean, dude, to represent, we need a better team than Haas. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And could that be the death of Haas? Because if Cadillac comes in, the US support will go to people love Caddy. People around the world love Caddy,
Yeah, and I could see it being the death of Haas just because now they got the Toyota sponsorships all coming in.
which
Um,
is another new team possibly.
yeah, and now Toyota, I think they could just make it into Toyota team now, and that's just the new team, and so I could see that totally happening. Yeah.
And last one is Audi. Do you think Audi's still gonna come, or are they too scared watching the way Kick Sauber is going? Like, are they like, yeah,
Look,
we're good, bro.
look, yeah, that's actually honestly like we're laughing at it, but it's actually a really good point that you bring up because like the way if I think we're all expecting a really poor season from Kick, honestly, and just with the car. If they outperform, that's great. We always like to see like lower cars, like kind of like or like cars that are underperforming, kind of just overachieve a little bit. But
Yeah,
I think it's more or less the situation with Audi is that do they have something to work off of? Are they gonna, even though it's completely gonna be very, very different coming next season, do they at least have a good foundation put in place, at least to make sure that the partnership or this new thing with Audi is actually gonna be good? That's what I'm really questioning. And I think it would be a really, really bad look if they, at the end of maybe next season, they're
yeah,
they're in the bottom. And even though that they're in their debut season, I just don't think that's a great look, honestly. Yeah.
yeah. I think just as last point as we wrap up, you're mentioning Audi and how they're developing. I think
Yep.
it's important for people to know with the new regulations coming, guys, basically every 5 years, the regulations change for the cars and how they're supposed to be built.
More
And with
competitive.
next,
Yeah.
yeah, more competitive, closer to each other, closer racing. Now, next year's regulations are so different that a lot of teams are saying, how much do we want to actually focus on this season? How much do we want to go into next season? So, Akash, do you think we'll see a situation where the first half is like two or three teams here, then the second half is two or three different teams coming, and it's just a whole
Look,
crossover?
it's just a financial issue at that point. If a team thinks that they can really make a serious play and compete, and if they somehow overachieve a lot, then I think the more resources will go. I think if they can and be really honest with themselves when the midseason break kind of happens, maybe even before that, honestly, if they don't see any good performance or they're not forecasting any good performance, then it's not really worth, honestly, it's not worth investing a lot into that
So,
car, because everything is going to change in 2026. So you'd rather put all your efforts there and try to make something work, I would guess.
which is why Mercedes is so interesting because Mercedes has not got these regulations right until now, and they're still trying. And same with Ferrari, going with a whole different design philosophy of like changing the suspension and all that stuff. I don't know where these two teams will land up. And that's a really unpredictable part of this season because you're talking about two of the top four teams.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I think that's a great way for us to kind of wrap it up today, man. It is going to be chaotic.
Stressful.
I think this first half is. I think all the eyeballs are going to be on this first half, and
True.
and that's where we're going to see whether or not who's going to come out with a fast start. Are some teams going to kind of not perform to their expected level, and we'll see if maybe some teams decide, hey, I think we're just gonna just put the minimum resources that we need just to complete the season, and we'll just accept whatever we accept, and then
True.
focus on 2026. So super super interesting kind of first half season, and we're excited, guys. It's Draft to Survives out also today, so it's going to be good. It's going to be a fun season. I think there's just too many things that are going on. There's too many storylines, I would say.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So,
we will try to keep you guys covered as usual. So see you soon.
all right. Take